Leeds United 0, Manchester United 2, smash and grab settings. Come on. Yes, because where on earth did that come from? That came from the brain of Erik ten Hag is where that came from. The changes he made changed the game. They won us the game. But let's start off positives. Positives, we are second in the league. We are, at the time of recording this, we are second in the league. Manchester City are currently playing Aston Villa. As I talk to you right now, the expectation is they'll probably win that game, so we'll probably go back down to third. But the point is that pretty much the majority of the teams in the top half yesterday dropped points. Particularly important is those teams around the top four area. They all dropped points yesterday. I'm not saying title race. I'm saying top four race. Champions League is a must for next season, especially with the possible new owners. If we have Champions League football, what we can offer players is significantly more, especially at a time in which people like Liverpool and Chelsea are also not in that top four race. So that's a positive. That's the positives in that game. And the biggest positive is that we won that game. However, it was not pretty. It was not good. That is one of the worst performances for about 75 minutes from a Manchester United side in quite a while. I was thinking during the game, actually, I was like, man, I haven't seen us play like this since maybe Villa away. Even that day, I felt that we might have played a bit better when we lost to Villa away from home. Tracing it all the way back to sort of Brentford, Brighton, first couple of games of the season, we were poor for large portions of the game. For the majority of the game today, we were poor. And the positive is that despite being poor and despite not playing very well, despite being lethargic, despite showing not a lot of aggression, we still got the job done today and we still won the game. A game which, again, it's interesting and it's important to take a step back because the feeling coming out of the game in midweek was that this team last season would have lost that game in midweek, right? 2-0 down at the beginning of the second half, we'd have lost. We wouldn't have come back. We didn't have that kind of character. Same thing with today. You know, that side last season, I know we did win at Ellen Road last season, but had the game been like it was today at Ellen Road last season or a couple of seasons prior, we wouldn't have won that game. We would have crumbled. We would have conceded. We wouldn't have had smash and grab in the last couple of minutes. And it just goes to show that United, despite not being at their best, can get the job done. And that is the sign of a good team. That's the sign of a great team. Now, the lineup today, I don't think many people would have predicted the lineup that we saw, particularly the back four, Malacia, Maguire, Shaw, Dalot. We just looked, for the majority of that game, we just looked very, very vulnerable. We looked very, very lethargic. I mean, I understand fatigue. That might be the explanation for it, but we rode our luck a lot. And you know what you're going to get with Leeds. And that was what was frustrating me in this game is, you know, particularly because you just played them a few days ago, but you just know in general what you're going to get with this Leeds side, even though they don't have a manager, but with this management structure that they still have, they're still going to do what Jesse Marsch did, and even before that, Bielsa did. And that's pressing really, really high and pressing with a lot of intensity, a lot of aggression. And when they're like that, you just got to make sure that your quality on the ball is decent. You've got to make sure you don't take too many touches. You don't take too much time. You get the ball out of your feet and your passing's crisp. And it's, again, showing a little bit of quality. And that just wasn't the case. United were so lethargic for the majority of the game. Really, really lethargic. I mean, Harry Maguire at centre-back started today. First away Premier League start since the Brentford game. And I know I tweeted this during the game, I know it's easy to single out Harry Maguire, and a lot of people do it when maybe sometimes he doesn't deserve it, but I felt today he did. I know I saw some people saying they thought he played well. I just disagree massively. I mean, so many touches he was taking, 4 or 5 touches, or he was slowing the play down a couple of times at the beginning of the second half. He did 2 or 3 hospital passes that, fortunately, United got away with in the end, but it wasn't good. It just wasn't. And look, Maguire wasn't the only one. Midfield pairing of Fred and Sabitzer today, once again, looked like a pair of players that have only started one game together, and Casemiro and Christian Eriksen, they're just such a miss. Obviously, Casemiro to a greater extent is a massive miss for this team, especially in a game like today where you need aggression, you need tenacity, but also you need composure, and you need someone that's actually got quality on the ball, and that's where we miss Christian Eriksen actually today as well. I was having a bit of a back and forth on Twitter about this, that Christian Eriksen, I think people are sort of underestimating his importance to this team. He is the pass before the pass quite a few times, and particularly in the first half and for the majority of the second half. that just crisp passing wasn't there, and that little bit of magic and goal dust wasn't there. And despite that, we still should have taken our chances. Bruno Fernandes missed a one-on-one in the first half. He also missed an opportunity before that where he drags it wide. But beginning of the second half, it was frustrating because you went, man, there's 4 consecutive halves of football where Leeds start fast and United start slow. And we were just looking all over the place. We just looked so lethargic, so sloppy. Even Rashford, before his goal, he looked sloppy and he looked lethargic. He was taking too many touches. And because it wasn't working, Ten Hag makes the change. He brings on Lisandro Martinez, Alejandro Garnacho, Jadon Sancho, Malacia come off. And I didn't think actually either did badly. I thought Sancho looked pretty bright when he was on. I thought Malacia gave a good account of himself throughout the game. I thought he was one of the few people that was actually showing some form of aggression, some tenacity. But by doing that, he made the changes and he changed the shape importantly as well, Erik Ten Hag. You had Martinez and Maguire at centre-back, so you actually had a centre-back that could, actually bring the ball forward and pass between the lines in Lisandro Martinez. You had Luke Shaw at left back, so you could get a little bit higher up the pitch. And when you did get higher up the pitch, you just had that little bit of extra quality which you needed, and that showed for the goal. And you had Garnacho on the left wing. You had Rashford, not even necessarily on the right. He was still quite central throughout that second half. And you had Garnacho that could go at the right back because Luke Ayling, I thought, had a fantastic game. And as soon as we made those changes, it took a little bit, but we started to get more and more into game. We still looked sloppy. We still looked lethargic, but it was just those bits of quality that we didn't have previously. That first goal, it starts with Sabitzer as well. You've got to give a shout out to Sabitzer. Finally gets the ball out to the left-hand side where we did have some room, but the passing was so poor that we just couldn't get it out there. And once we got the ball out there, Sabitzer puts it out to Shaw, and the quality's there. That's what you get with Luke Shaw at left back, as opposed to being a centre back. You get that extra bit of technical quality on the left-hand side. It's a brilliant ball in the box, and Marcus Rashford, that's what he's been doing this season. He's been hitting those headers, and every single time they're putting the balls in the box, and he's meeting it with his head, a lot of the time it's going in. And it just goes to show, once again, what Erik Ten Hag and what Marcus Rashford have together in a partnership is fantastic, because obviously, look, Marcus Rashford, you have to give him a ton of credit himself, personally, as an individual. He's the one putting the ball in the back of the net. He's the one scoring all of these goals, getting all of these assists, changing the game positively, but also it comes from Erik Ten Hag as well. He's the inspiration. He's the guy that's pushing Rashford to improve his qualities, and Erik Ten Hag has backed Marcus Rashford since day one, since walking through the door at Carrington, and we're just starting to see the dividends that it's providing Manchester United this season. And then smash and grab settings, as I mentioned, it's 1-0. 5 minutes later, Alejandro Garnacho, it's a pass from Wout Weghorst. One of the first times in the game that I felt that his link-up play was as it should be. I thought throughout the game as well, particularly in the first half, he looked really, really isolated, but second half, he still did look a little bit sloppy. His first touch was off, and his hold-up play, I think even he would be disappointed with it. But what we did start to see finally is a bit of hold-up play, releases Garnacho, still has a lot to do, and he just gave the keeper the eyes. It's a really, really, really good finish off the inside of the post, off Melia's near post, which I think, again, Melia would be disappointed with himself, but I think Garnacho actually does give him the eyes. And what did Ten Hag say after the game against Leeds at Old Trafford? He got in those opportunities, he was lively, he just needs to score those chances, and he did today. And to all of those people that were criticising Garnacho, hang your head in shame, honestly. He's an 18-year-old kid, and as I mentioned in the week, it's not as if he had a terrible game. He just missed a couple of chances. He was getting in positions. And on another day, he would score them, like today. If he works on his end product, what a player. We should be encouraging these players, not slagging them off the moment they have a bad game. So I think that Garnacho redeemed himself, not that he had to in the eyes of myself, and I think the majority of United fans, but back him. And he shushed the doubters, and he was right to. And Manchester United now, on the back of, again, a really poor performance, get a much-needed 3 points as we look to secure that top 4 position and Champions League football for next season. So onwards to Barcelona, big victory today, and now Europa League settings await. And next season, hopefully, Champions League settings too.